I don't work with jerks. I speak to what we're good at. And I have a lot of people, to your point, who complain about our price, which I think our price is fair. Like, we're not the most expensive. We're not the cheapest, right? We are boutique. You go into a high quality place that has high quality clothing, you're not going to throw it out in 2 washes, right? You're going to keep it for a long time because it's quality.
Welcome back to the High Ticket Systems Podcast. Everyone, please welcome the one and only Mr. Dan Salganik. Dan, how you doing today?
Doing great. Can't complain. Sunny out. So feeling good.
It's always a good day when it's sunny in Chicago. You know, I,
I
I,
know.
I live here in Utah, and we do have 4 seasons, as I'm sure you're aware, being Chicago. It rains, it snows, and it's such a blessing when it's like 72 degrees out. It's like, I want to be outside.
I know. That's like up to 10 days a year. So yeah, we not quite 72 yet, but we're getting there one day.
For sure, for sure. I always ask this question to kind of frame the conversation. My friend, what is your offer and who do you sell to?
So we're a full service marketing agency, senior led team. Nearly everybody has at least 10 to 15 years of experience, and we focus specifically to growth focused established B2B brands, meaning they've been around for a while, they have something in place, some systems, and they're looking to scale to like the next level in some capacity, whether that's revenue, whether that's brand, digital, but ultimately they're looking to grow and expand and become more digitally focused. And we are the agency that has that full service capacity under one roof to make it happen.
I like how you work with B2B companies. Can you give us a few verticals that you like to work in?
Yeah, the primary vertical that we work in is what I call infrastructure, or we call it actually builds at VisualFizz. That's industrial construction, manufacturing, and logistics. The other
Nice.
one is kind of, I'll call it high tech SaaS, for lack of a better way to put it. And then the third vertical, which is a little bit different than the others, is cannabis. Fell into the space, a little bit unique, have had really great experiences. But the ones I really do focus on at the end of the day, B2B, mid market, and larger brands.
Very interesting perspective that you could offer our audience because not a lot of guests work in the what was the non-tech savvy word for industry A?
Oh,
Industrial.
infrastructure or builds. Yeah.
Build. Yeah. Not a lot of guests have been on the podcast that work in that niche. So if you don't mind kind of going into detail with that for a second, if I were a brick and mortar industrial company, okay, and I sell to other businesses, what's like typically the best avenue you would go down to scale up revenue? Because that's my goal right now.
Yeah, great question. I mean, so a lot of my clients, I'll give you a scenario.
For sure.
They are generally 30 to 50-year-old plus companies. They're probably doing anywhere from 75 million to, let's call it $1 billion. Let's say round number $250 million. They are possibly going through some sort of reorg, positive reorg, but anything from maybe a younger team, maybe private equity, maybe just ultimately noticing that their client, their competitors are starting to um, amp up a little bit of what they offer from a digital perspective, and they need to keep up. They need to grow. So oftentimes it starts with brand. That is kind of understanding, especially because many of these companies have grown through mergers, acquisitions,
Mhm.
or through some sort of corporate growth through, let's call it, expansion, national expansion, things like that. How to mitigate and put that all into one package, brand it out properly, build a good online user funnel, because right now most buyers, even though the handshake deals on the golf course still exist, a lot more buyers are not focusing on that, and they're actually utilizing the web. So that's step kind of one and two. The next is long-term SEO, paid media, etc., but ultimately inbound, trying to bring in the lead. But I will tell you, one of the things that's almost the obvious that we focus on that a lot of agencies actually don't think about is what happens after the lead. And that's everything from the rev ops, the sales, the CRM, and then post sale transactions, post sale marketing, referrals, all that. So I build a system that is from the beginning, middle, and end of the awareness funnel, if you will, or the sales funnel, all the way past the sales funnel to growth. To answer your question more bluntly, it's having good systems in place and operations so you don't lose like these trickling leads, this faucet, so to speak. A lot more of these big companies with $100,000, $1 million pipeline deals, they lose their clients or customers or prospective customers just because they're not as proactive as they could be from a digital perspective.
Dude, oh my gosh, you dropped on so many nuggets right there.
Sorry.
No, it's fantastic. People lack the understanding, and they forget the importance of post sale SOPs. Like just because they gave you money doesn't mean that it's over. Like by definition, in my opinion, it just started. Like now
Yeah.
I have to deliver on this promise, right? And I think there's so many thoughts that enter the buyer's mind in the first 24, 48, 72 hours. And if you are not communicating effectively, if you are dropping the ball on the first one or two things, their trust, because they had trust to give you money, right? Their trust just went significantly down, and you have to
Mm-hmm.
work 10 times harder to get that shit back. So, lack of a better word, don't fuck up the onboarding process. Get
100%. I call it the honeymoon phase, actually.
talk to it.
Like, yeah, it's and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I get excited to talk about sales. I completely agree with you. It is so much harder to win a new client than to scale up an existing client. It's just it's multiples. In my industry, where we build relationships, and most of these are relationship driven. Some of them are commodities that we work for. But the honeymoon period, in my opinion, is the first in my industry. It's not 60 to 90 days, right? If you do not have a great this honeymoon period, you're getting to know each other, you're dating, you're basically trying to figure out are we the ones? If you don't have it, you probably aren't going to last very long. If you have a good, strong foundation built, that relationship can last years.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have a very similar mindset with it's so much easier to keep your customers happy, your clients happy, opposed to finding new clients.
Oh
And
yeah.
Daniel Fazio, not sure if you know that name, a lot of respect for him. He cusses like a sailor, just some YouTube guy that is in the high ticket space. Long story short, he's like, you can only bring your CAC, your cost of acquisition, down to a certain point. You can infinitely scale lifetime value, dude. Like you can create new offers, you can keep customers happy, cross sell,
Mhm.
down sell, up sell, left, right sell, you know? And it's just piggybacking off of what you say. It is so much easier to keep a client happy than finding new business.
100%.
When it comes to your pricing, not pricing model, your terms, how like long are your engagements typically?
So this company now, VisualFizz, is hitting its 10th year next year. So
That's
we
all.
are not a new agency. And I now have the ability to say no to work as well, which I didn't back in the day. I actually tell a lot of customers or clients that I don't feel that they're in it for a relationship, that we I basically let them know softly that I'm in it for the long run. And if they're expected to have, ROI within, days or weeks, or they think that we're just going to make them rich overnight, there's other agencies that are going to sell to them for that. I am not in that kind of mindset, and I don't want that for my team. It's very important that I keep my team happy because they're more important than anything else. Without
Yes.
the good team, you don't have a good agency.
Mhm.
And so, generally speaking, there are project based projects. Hey, can you redesign my blink? Yes, that takes 20 days, whatever. Can you rebuild my website? Yeah, that takes 3 to 6 months. But generally speaking, I like to think of it as a multi-year engagement. And I do tell most of my prospective customers and clients, if you're signing with us, you're signing with a team. So right now there's so much attrition happening and turnover and back and forth. We stay with you the whole time. And we have a very great team that kind of houses that team, or that kind of mindset. And ultimately, most of my client relationships, some end for economic reasons, some end because of acquisition, some end because it's time, and that's okay. But I try to stick with clients for at least a year. Generally, most of my relationships are, I don't know, 2 to 5, 2 to 3 years, 2 to 4 years. And some of them are like 6 or 7 years, which is amazing.
Yeah, no, even anything past a year, I think in the agency space is pretty unheard of. Like honestly,
Hmm.
especially because I'm sure you get bombarded with like Facebook ads and Instagram ads of other agencies trying to sell you shit. And most of them, like with all due respect, like keep your hustle up, but it's a lot of churn and burn. Like acquiring new clients, dog shit results, dog shit results, acquire new clients. But getting back to keep your clients happy, and you'll have the capital to hire a team. On that note, what is a ballpark headcount for
We
the
have
company?
20. Yeah, so we are a 50-50 mix between full-time and contract. Most of my contract team members have been with VisualFizz for at least a few years. So they know the systems in and out. I keep a close-knit group, but it's always allowed me to expand and retract accordingly. So if we ever bring on a big client, we lose a big client. My full-time team, I was a product of a layoff over 10 years ago. I didn't like it. I was young and I was about to buy my first apartment or condo, and got laid off and canceled the deal. I said I don't want it, and I thought, wow, that was a big move. And I just didn't want that for my team. So I have built this kind of mixed model, which now is very popular, but I will tell you 10 years ago wasn't as popular as it is today. Um, but we've been remote the whole time. And the structure I've built is have one key specialist with that 10, 15, 20 years of experience owning each vertical, and a handful of contractors who have been tested, have worked in our systems, have understood everything we're doing, and also have those 10 years of experience plus underneath them. And you build a really nice little ecosystem of kind of the primary stakeholder and then the secondary who's also implementing a lot of it.
Especially with, I could imagine if you are working with a company that was just acquired, there's a lot of rebranding that has to go into that. So the question I propose to you is, with these 12-month engagements, I imagine you roll out services in phases, right? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Um, Typically with an acquisition, it's rebrand, so logos, colors, websites, all that fun stuff. Once that's dialed in, moving over to SEO. Is paid media ever applicable for like the build section?
Totally. Oh my
Really?
God. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, with some of our clients, we've gotten 25x ROAS on our ad campaigns. Like,
Wow.
yeah, I mean, you're talking about 20, 30, 50, $100,000 sales, especially on things that are, again, more commoditized, like it's an industrial service that's needed every X number of years. So we're not even talking the LTV, lifetime value of that customer, but really just that one-time sale. And so when you bring in the LTVs, the numbers, that ROAS is like 50.
Oh,
But yeah, I mean, some customers maybe not, right? Because there's massive construction companies that, yes, it can help, but it's all really built around brand awareness and being able to be found everywhere when being searched. But again, that's a 5, 10, $20 million sale. That's kind of like, you just need to be in the game. But let's say you're a machinery company that sells, $75,000 machines, and there's nationally, so, or domestically rather, 10 of you, everything else is offshore, and you want to be the leader in that space. You commit the money because it's, $75,000 for that plus servicing everything else. Your lifetime value is way beyond that. You should be spending $5,000, $10,000 to get that conversion. Because otherwise, if you don't, I mean, and you couple that with SEO and everything else, so eventually your cost per acquisition goes down, or your chances of being found are more diversified. But long short of it is, it's certainly worth testing. In most capacities.
got you. Thank you for the context there. You said things happen in life. You were working with the company and then no longer were. Were you in the build industry? Is that why you decided to choose no? Just
No,
out of
not at all.
curiosity, why the industry that you chose to help?
Yeah, so 2019, 20, yeah, 2019, I got an email from a company. They're a paving company, and they kind of looked like a mom and pop. I didn't know a lot about them, and I learned quite a bit about them over time through getting to know them. Found out they were one of the largest paving companies in the country at the time, Chicago based here, and they took a shot at us when we were two people, just my co-founder and I and a couple contractors, and they said, "Hey, like, we're gonna take this shot with you guys, but you've got to deliver." And we said, "Okay, let's do it." So they were our, biggest client for years. They grew and grew and grew. The company went from, I don't know the exact numbers, and since we're speaking publicly, let's just call it one number to maybe three times that number. It's
Sure.
a seven, eight, nine figure number. So it's a substantial business, and they grew nationally. And we helped them grow nationally through multi location, through the SEO, paid search, organic, email, every single thing. We were the agency of record, and that stuck. And then another company came in. And then Chicago's largest concrete company reached out to us. We fully rebranded them. If you drive around Chicago, every concrete truck that you see with has our logo that we've designed for them on there, so it's like a point of pride. Then we got into machinery, and then we got into working with some logistics firms, and we like what we call boring businesses. And I know they're not boring for everybody, but for like corrugated boxes, X-ray machinery, piping, handrails, like US fencing is like a client I want. No one really wants US fencing. Like Caterpillar obviously is kind of more sexy. But like US fencing, or like there's a company I tried to win that literally just makes all the cones and dividers for the country. Like that's a great client. Such a commodity. Maybe 15 competitors, two big ones. Like love those. And so it just felt kind of like I'm not in love with those industries by way of loving concrete, but the application. For example, I got to go on top of a skyscraper during its build in the middle of winter on the top floor as we were pouring literal tons of concrete down. Like that is really interesting to me. And then
Yeah.
the challenge of a multi-month or a year sale and being the agency that's interested in that versus like Nike or whatever, that's fun too.
That makes so much sense. And honestly, dude, like working for the biggest companies in your own backyard is a statement. You should definitely be proud of that, honestly.
I appreciate
Even
that.
for sure, even working with the paving company, taking them from 8 to 9 figures or 9 to multiple 9 figures is wow. That's super cool. When it comes to you landing clients now, I assume is it through like relationship building? Is it through like email, LinkedIn? Because you have some amazing case studies. It sounds like.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we've worked with two-person startups up to our biggest client ever was a $47 billion company, and everything in between. And it's weird because I call VisualFizz a diamond in the rough because we've got a great tiny team, tiny company, and really great things to show for it. My new business is interesting. My co-founder and I came from we were. I'll just put it this way: when we launched this business in 2016, I was probably the youngest marketing agency owner in Chicago, if not maybe one of the top five. I was 24 years old, and I didn't come with a Rolodex of connections and a book of business like coming from a big Leo Burnett or FCB. Like I had to build it from scratch. And so it was a combination of SEO, hustling out at like 3, 4, 5 networking events, building relationships, LinkedIn, finding hacks, going to third party website referral things, Clutch, basically being everywhere, just being everywhere. And then now I was at an event just a couple days ago and somebody asked me that. And I was like, the industry has gotten much more competitive. It has been always competitive, and it's even more. Just like you noted earlier, it's horribly competitive. And he is a UX designer, and he's like, "Hey, I know who you guys are." I'm like, "Hell yeah, that's awesome." And I think now we sell ourselves on reputation. Like
Mm,
everything else we still do, but the difference is like I don't think there's a ton of agencies my size that have had clients like mine who
mhm.
have an experienced team that has 5 to 10 years with me that also has 70 or 80 case studies, 70 5-star reviews, and the interest in the non-traditional, well, let me rephrase actually, the traditional industries, the non-sexy industries who can actually return on investment. That's a very
That
long statement.
you're totally fine. And again, congratulations. But you said you sell on reputation, and at the end of the day, that to me is branding, right? And
100%.
when I think of your company, Visual Fizz, yes, and I know for a fact that they deliver on their promise. They have 70 case studies, like you're saying, 5-star reviews all over the place. Like I'm 1000% going with this company over a company that's not at your size, your caliber, etc. Even though you might be 5x, 10x the price, you're deserving because again, you deliver on your promise.
And to be honest, Jordan, I'm the sales guy at the company. I really enjoy it, and I'm pretty forward because like nowadays, before I had to hide with my tail behind my back and kind of do all that, and I still sometimes, with sales is sale. You got to win it. You got to feed your team, but I don't work with jerks. I speak to what we're good at. And I have a lot of people, to your point, who complain about our price, which I think our price is fair. Like, we're not the most expensive, we're not the cheapest, right? We are boutique. You go into a high quality place that has high quality clothing, you're not going to throw it out in 2 washes, right? You're going to keep it for a long time because it's quality. And so when customers complain about price. And listen, I started this business with $50. Like, I know the value of $1. Everything I built was because I saved and I reinvested and I did all that. So like I never worked at the big agencies where my campaigns were $50 million or an ad cost 500,000. Like, that's not my world. But I will say, if the company can't afford it, it's not a startup and they can't afford it, and you're fighting me over $500, $1,000, couple $1,000, your company does 50 million because you want the cheaper person on Upwork, you're going to be my number one most challenging client. And I'm not saying that to be condescending, being full of pride or rude, but I've done this now for 15 years. I've run my company for 10. And I tell clients up front, especially if I don't get to showcase what we're offering, like it's an unfair fight, so to speak. I'm not afraid to tell them why I think I'm right. If they tell me, hey, there's another agency that's better suited in the industry that we're in, like if it's, I don't know, outdoor gear, and like I just don't do that much, and another agency beats me, whether it's price or whatever, I don't care. That's totally fair. I deserve not to win that because maybe I'm not the best suited agency for it, and you wanted a specialist. But if it's purely price and nothing else, like I'm not gonna fight it. It's just not worth it.
I learned this from Cole Gordon, but basically, the more you pay, the more you pay attention. To piggyback off of that, the highest paying clients, in my opinion, bro, are the best clients, the chillest clients. And
Mm-hmm.
like the less they pay, like the lower paying clients are the biggest fucking headache ever in the world, dude. Complain about everything. They want everything done yesterday. It's like, or the highest paying clients, they'll give you whatever your fee is, and then you'll never hear from them again. Like they're fine. Like you just pay them, and they're
Yeah.
like, all right, good. They take care of whatever that I'm paying you for. And it's just such night and day difference. I don't know why that is, but maybe because we know whenever sure we're broke, we know the value of $1, and it's like I'm investing everything I have into this. I want to make sure it works versus
Mm-hmm.
I can lose this fee 10 times over and I'm fine. So I'm not gonna bitch about you taking your time to make sure the job is done properly. One might say.
Yeah, and here's the thing, right? Like, I'm okay. I understand people have low budgets, but you come to me and you tell me kind of where you're at. I think that's the biggest thing, because I do have clients who are mom and pops or physical location businesses, and their budget only expands so far, right? And I want to be cognizant of those people too, because I have had clients that are under my minimums for years, but they're saints, great clients. They pay on time. They don't complain. They understand they're not my biggest client, but we don't treat them any different because they're smaller. But I think the biggest thing is, like, you can't expect the highest quality work at the fastest time possible at the lowest price and be rude in the meantime. And that's where I kind of like, that's my sticking point, is really like, come to me and say, hey, listen, we are $5 million company. We're growing. We're really excited about the future. Can we work with you on this? Yeah, absolutely. Like, come to me with that, but don't come like with the attitude of, and this is why I actually, to be candid, I've almost fully, sometimes there's a client I like, but I've almost fully stopped working with founder led small startups because of that. And I love startup founders, but they're too close to the money. They're too over invested and they're too emotional. I being one of them. Um, to allow for us as an agency, which does have infrastructure and overhead and other clients, to really identify that. So oftentimes when they come to me and reach out, I tell them, work with a contractor. They're going to be better suited than an agency. If it hurts to get the invoices from an agency, don't work with an agency. Work with a contractor. Build your way up to an agency.
That's great advice, actually, for people after that. They need to hear that. How 20 people working for you? When it comes to like the hiring process, I guess what are some tips, tricks, pointers, processes that you have in place that find vetted, seasoned, expert talent, like you're saying?
I think they have to. I mean, listen, I always come to the mindset, like, I think we're doing cool stuff, but agencies are not. Like, we're not innovating the world. We're not changing the world. We're selling people products. And so, like, the more, COVID kind of reminded me that we're not very essential. We sell people stuff. Um, but I think that the team members that come to VisualFizz, to be
That was
honest,
funny as
that,
hell.
we're trying to make companies more money. But we do work with nonprofits, and that's great. But I think the biggest thing is when you try to bring on new people, especially because VisualFizz is very senior led. Like we are not hiring people who are brand new to this. We're not hiring college students. I have to decline a lot of people who are even 5, 8 years into their career because they're simply not there yet. Um, I think that it takes the leadership to bring on the right people, in the sense that people have to look at me, um, and say I trust this guy. Like not only have they built a very great foundation and a strong business, but the business is only as strong as their leadership.
Mm.
um, and I don't say this again in a pompous way that sounds like I'm the end all be all, because I make a hell of a lot of mistakes. But I think the team has to trust that you are a good leader, that you're loyal, and that you're not going to screw them financially at any point. So for me, it's always been heavily on a bit based on trust, transparency, and like an open door policy, that like we're building this thing together. We're a small team. We're not a family. We don't do any of that crap, but we're a small team. We respect each other. We work well. You will work hard because it's an agency, but you will be rewarded in the sense of job security. Never laid anyone off for financial reasons in 10 years. And you will be rewarded by work life balance, mainly outside of, it is a hard, it's not a brand work week. We have a lot of clients we have to kind of treat well, and some are nice and some aren't. Some are great. Um, and just knowing that like their boss has their back, I think that's a big part of it. From a like, you got to sell them to come to your company oftentimes when they're that senior. On the other hand, I think people get excited about what we do. Like I think they look at our case studies. I have a lot of people who are like, dude, you have had some really cool projects. And then the exciting part is like leadership, like myself, can talk about it and not be like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. The bottom line, bottom line. Like that's not interesting to a designer, like how much the company's profiting on a client. But what's interesting is, hey, we actually just launched this really cool whatever, and you could be part of that next project. Like that's what gets them excited. So it's two-sided.
Let's stay on the topic of leadership because we don't really go down this path, but with your experience and the head count, we can definitely talk about it. What do you
Cool.
feel like truly, what do you feel like separates average leaders versus leaders like, I'm following this guy? Like, this is my guy that
Yeah,
I'm going to
I think the first one is you need to lead people, not, how do I put it, you need to lead people, not push people, I guess is like a way I'd put it. And let me explain. There's a my team are very smart, but they're specialists, right? So like they're really good at their thing they're good at, and some are good at other things too, and they're just very talented. But not everybody knows everything, and I certainly don't. But let's say I know a topic or an answer or how to treat a scenario, right? Like, hey, clients mad at us about something, I don't know how I should respond. Dan, do it. Well, no, I'm not going to do it, because then I do it again and again. It's like a toddler, and I don't mean that in a way against my team, but it's like if the toddler complains to you and you keep responding to them, they know that they have a hold on you. But if your client complains and Dan always comes after it, then they know Dan's going to do that next time. So I like to think about it as a like treasure map, and I could lead them to the X, but then they didn't think about any of the directions to get there. So theoretically, the way I like to do is like, we're working on this together, whether it's me and a person, it's 5 people. The X is here. It's a built website. It's a beautiful brand. It's a client issue. It's a financial issue, whatever. But I'm only going to take it so far, because if I'm not a leader. I'm just a colleague, or I'm simply like an AI bot that's going to lead you there. So like I think at the end of the day, you've got to work alongside your team to get them to a place. And people make another one I'll tell you is like, people make mistakes. Um, they shouldn't make mistakes at agencies, because you are being paid for high quality work. But we're all people. A spelling error, whatever, like it happens. I think that there's a couple ways to go about dealing with an issue and the severity of an issue. And as long as you as a leadership can turn it into an opportunity for learning versus like basically yelling at the person in a group setting, like that's not going to help anyone. That just takes morale down to the bottom. So it's you know we expect perfection out of our team, because agencies have to be very good at what we do. That's why people pay us. So I have those expectations for my team, especially being tenured. But that being said, I make a hell of a lot of mistakes. They make some mistakes. It's about treating situations the right way to ensure that people don't feel like, oh, forget this guy. Like, I hate my boss. I want to quit. I
Exactly.
just don't think my team, and I may be totally wrong, but I don't think my team feels that way about my leadership style because I try to be proactive. As long as they're trying, I'm going to be fair and honest and do my best to support them and have them understand that they were wrong, possibly not right. Like they didn't do a good job, but it has to be done respectfully.
I can tell by your energy, how you carry yourself as a man, as a person, as a communicator. You have amazing leadership skills. I can't imagine somebody messing up and you are like screaming at them in front of everyone. I I
Try
also
not to.
love right. I also love the way that you said, we all have this treasure map. Like we all know where the X is, how to get there exactly, no one knows for sure, but we're all going to get there together. One thing to kind of piggyback off of that is I used to own a leadership podcast actually. So I don't know, wanted to become a better leader because I was growing, I was hiring a team, XYZ. I'm like, what's the best way to do this? Interview leadership experts, right? So
Sure.
it's that. Long story short, they basically said if you are a dictator in a role, no one's going to follow you. However, you can gain so much trust, you can gain so much respect and fellowship as a leader if you say, hey guys, here's the problem. How are we collectively going to solve this problem?
Hmm.
Because when everyone's involved, it's like, okay, that was Billy's idea. And then Sari piggybacked off Billy's idea. And then John back here had something to say. Now everyone's like, okay, I like this solution. Let's get after it. Let's
Yeah.
attack the problem, right? Opposed to, hey guys, that was a horrible idea. You freaking suck. Why'd you even talk? Here's how we're gonna go about it. Now everyone's like, well, fuck this guy, dude. Like, I don't fucking solve this problem
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Well, I'll tell you this as because I totally agree. I mean, I'll tell you, I think we even take a step further at VisualFizz because I asked my team a couple years ago, and then last year, and then this year, what does the future look like for the company? I could tell them what it looks like, but I actually asked we have a weekly meeting, stand up for an hour, and I said, who's your ideal client? Like, who should I, the sales guy, be reaching out to? Like, what's our positioning? And my team expressed their positioning, and we got into infrastructure. Like, people come to agencies and they want to work for, like, I don't know, Kraft and Nike and all that, as I mentioned, or like Apple. But they come in and they're like, oh, that I'll just keep it vague. That industrial client we have, I want more of them. And you're like, whoa, like you're like a 35-year-old person and like that's what you want, and that's cool because I don't think that's very common at other agencies. But I will tell you, out of the 10 people in my team when we had that conversation, like 6 of them were like, I just want to work with really good full service clients like XYZ who are in a non-traditional or like non-agency exciting industry because they're great clients. But I think to your point about the leadership thing is like, I want them to choose where the future is of the company, and I'm going to back it because they're going to feel like there is invested interest from the CEO of the company to say, yeah, if you want more of these clients, I'm going to do my best to get them there. That's going to be my role.
damn, I really like how you did that. I really like how you did.
That's how we're going on the build side. I mean, we were going to do that anyway, but they just pushed it further and said, like, we really want like these types of clients. And yeah, we're kind of rebuilding, rebranding all of VisualFizz kind of around that. So it's work in progress.
Well, that's cool. Honest, like if I'm being transparent, I have no desire to work with like the Nikes or like the Crafts. I want to help the littler guy, dude, because I mean, I'm still a fucking little guy if I'm being honest, you know? And I think helping other companies that are like sure, maybe bigger than I or around the same revenue headcount as I'm not I'm like I feel like I have a more meaningful impact on that business. Like
Oh
when
yeah.
I first like real talk, dude, no BS. When I helped my first client get to 100K a month, excuse me, not my first client. When I got my client to their first 100K month for my first time, I cried because like
Oh,
I
that's
changed that
cool.
person's life. I changed that person's business. Like And like I had a major impact on that, like that was so freaking cool to me. But if I were to add 100K to a business that's already doing like 9 figures, like they made that in like a day. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like,
Oh yeah.
so it's just, I guess it's cool to hear that even your veteran employees or staff want to help the smaller companies. Because like to me, that's meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think we just want good clients. We want clients that listen to us. I think that's the biggest thing is like there's a couple clients we have that just they're healthy retainers. They pay the bills on time and they listen to us. Like you don't have a 15-year experienced specialist who comes out with a 25-page audit deck that's put like all their time into it, pitch it to the client, and then they just crap on it, or they don't do any of it, or they don't want to pay for it. And that stinks because your stuff is good, right? Like if this isn't somebody at college, this isn't Claude building it. Like this is a human who's seen the beginning of the internet to like today, right? Modern internet. And you're like, we've been through all these steps before. Like, do you want to build? Do you want to get like a house builder, who's cheaper and it's their first time building a house, but they did it with AI, or do you want to build your house that you paid $300,000 for and have a $10 million staff and pay a little extra for that team? And I think that's the biggest thing is like the clients that understand that we know what we're doing and our best interest is to make them more money, to get them to be sizable so we can literally grow our own account. It makes sense that my team wants those clients because they care about their work. If a client kind of is disrespectful about the outcome of a thing that is inherently good, it really upsets them. And a lot of people just brush off, be like, oh, that client sucks. They're like, no, like I'm really upset because I put a lot of work into this thing and they just kind of didn't respect it. And I feel that way too. Your team cares when it's Friday, 10 p.m. and maybe a client says something they shouldn't, and you're like, dang, like they message you, on Slack, and they're like, that stinks. And like most people, like they'd be like, yeah, screw this, I'm out. Like I'm gonna just enjoy my weekend. So I don't know. I feel like there's a level of investment when you've got that small team that like really cares about the output, and they do. They really do.
Man, if you have a team working at 10 p.m. on a Friday night,
They don't. So I gotta tell you, I do not. I am a very strict 9 to 5 person. I'm like 40 hours a week. Like unless we have like crazy deadlines or just last minute like web build that we had to do or whatever, my team is strictly 9 to 5. That being said, people get a Slack notification or an email notification, so they may reach out. But I want to in the public channel here say I'm very much work-life balance oriented, and I try to have my team work a real 9 to 5, again with caveat that it can sometimes be more or less. But I want people go out there in the middle of the day to like, I have a team member that goes and does community service for a couple of hours every like once a week, and I know they are so good at their job. I don't care at all that they have to leave for 2 hours on a Friday or on a Wednesday to do something that's good for the community, because they've made up for it, at a different time. That they can work at 7 p.m. if they want to. They don't need to, but then they've given up this couple of hours to do good. So it's like I gotta, I have to put some field, some information about my team there, that I do not make them work at Friday nights.
No, you're a good leader. I do want to say I'm very similar. Not on the whole work-life balance. I'm a workaholic. I love my work. Second thing is someone asked me, because it was a new hire, and they asked me like, do you care where I work? Do you care like if I want to work outside or like if I work at Starbucks and get shit done? I'm like, you can work under the sea. As long as the work gets done, dude, like that's all I care about.
Yep.
Like have fun. You can work 10 hours a week, 70 hours a week, just make sure the shit gets done. That's all I want.
100%.
Yeah,
No, that's been our mentality. We so I started this company when I was traveling across Asia.
Where'd you
And I
go?
was
Sorry, I have to ask a question real quick. Where'd you go in Asia?
No, you're good. I did so when I just started the company, I did 100 days out in Asia. I did Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Singapore, Malaysia, India, Hong Kong. I'm probably missing something. But yeah, I did. That was great. And then basically since then, I don't care where people work. We've been remote for 10 years as a company, before COVID and all that. So I actually have had a goal, which I don't know if I'll hit this year. I have a kiddo now, to travel 100 days a year every year. And I've hit that goal every time. So, I work out of Mexico City, I work out of Europe, DC, travel during COVID. We did 8 months drive, through the car, like just drove through the country in the car working remotely. So I'm all about remote work. I don't care where people work as well. Get the work done. Does
Oh
not
yeah.
matter to me.
How much do you feel like you've grown as a person, spiritually, philosophy from living out of the country and just traveling?
I think a
And
lot. Yeah, go ahead.
let me frame that better, because us, were you born in the States?
I was, yeah.
We love to work, as you know. And I think we are propaganded into thinking that we're the go. I mean, sure, there's a lot of cool things about America. Like, I'm not ungrateful for living here. But I have not done as much traveling as you, but I've traveled a little bit. I've lived in Mexico, I lived in South America,
Nice.
and it's heavenly. It's heavenly on the Caribbean Sea. And when I came back, I was like, dude, not that we have it all wrong, but like I just feel like I grown so much as a person in that short duration of time, and my mindset was completely shifted. I was more grateful. I was already like decently grateful, but even
Mhm.
more grateful. You know what I mean? And it's just, I think everyone needs to experience that. So you can speak on that if you want.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, I'm a big proponent of travel, and especially like not the, I do all the touristy stuff and I knock it out, and that like the net my standard is slow travel. I do not like to do, that whole set of countries was over 3.5 months, and some of them was just a week, like because it was not that big of a, like Hong Kong is not that large, so but yeah, I like slow travel. I like kind of incorporating myself into the day-to-day society and working out of coffee shops, and going to kind of like local places. If you go to Paris or Rome or Mexico City, whatever, like do the touristy stuff, do the fun stuff, and then try out like the
The lo-
local places that aren't that popular and aren't on all the platforms and this and that. Like Instagramification ruined a lot of travel, but I really enjoy it. Like there's something to be said, especially, I've done both. I've done family travel, I've traveled with my wife. But I really loved being a little bit younger and solo traveling. I think that when you ask that question is like the biggest thing for me. Like all those are great. Like every way that you travel, traveling with a kid is great, but it's different. There's set schedules. But like when I was a little bit, young, I was like probably, I don't know, late 20s or something. I would just do like a month in whatever country I wanted to, and no one knew me. You don't have an identity. You can kind of make up your own story a little bit. Like you're a digital nomad, which I think has a kind of a negative connotation nowadays. But you're just like, hey, I run a marketing firm. It's 6 years old at the time or whatever it was, and I don't know. And in the meantime, you can kind of enjoy your life. But I'll give you the opposite really quick because I built my company now 10 years in, and I think like I sometimes can get out of it and into it, but I will tell you like it's still, because it's not all sunshine and daisies, right? The company runs me, and that's just being honest. Like I trust my team quite a bit, but we are a small team. We are a very horizontal team, which means one of us leaves, there's a pocket that's missing. And though I really enjoyed freedom of being maybe a smaller company or a startup when I could travel 100 days and not even think about it, I will say we are a pseudo legit agency now with real clients that have real expectations and a team and a payroll and deliverables that just stack on. Like we're a real business, and travel has gotten more unpleasurable as we've gotten larger and being a founder than before. And I built my business for freedom, but I just, again, not being all sunshine and daisies. The challenges as a founder is you live and breathe your business. And when I was in Paris a couple of years ago, for example, for because the timing is like 9 a.m. here is like 4 or 5 p.m. there, I would give my wife my phone for like 4 hours because I'd be checking it, and I'm like, I don't want this. This is literally ruining my vacation. Um, so yeah, just on the other side of it, it's tough when you actually build something real, but you're not big enough to just wash your hands from it, which I don't want to do.
Thanks for being real about that. I heard this saying, not this saying, but I think Alex Hermosi and Layla Hermosi brought this up. They are clearly workaholics, but they love what they do. They love what they do. And I think Layla and her Alex, for going on like this honeymoon or some shit, And they were like 3 days into their vacation. They're like, dude, like I want to go back home. Like I want to work. And it was so
Oh my
funny
gosh.
because to me, I am at a point where I can't. Basically, what you're describing. Like I love what I do. I am very, very happy, but I feel like if I were to walk away, I would feel guilty for walking away and like enjoying my
Mhm.
life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it started out like I'm unemployable. Like I cannot work for other people, so of course I have to make it for myself. But at the same time, like you're saying, when shit gets real, payroll, client deliverables, like an actual legitimate business, your responsibility shoots through the roof, and it's no longer for funsies,
Yeah.
for anymore. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So how do you combat that? Do you have any advice for me?
Yeah, you gotta trust your team, right? I'm like all stressed out, and they're like, "Dan, we will survive. We've done it before." You gotta have great operations people and great operations in general to be able to leave. And nothing, I was out in Mexico for a wedding and other things, and nice hotel and everything. And I was like, guys, and it was after a long, long hiatus from travel because I had a little one at home. The winter was long, just didn't travel for a bit, whatever. And I was like, guys, I'm taking this trip. Like, I'm pretty tired. I just need to. By the end, I was a little antsy to do stuff. But I will tell you, like, having a good team, just keeping on it a little bit, but that's it. Just make sure there's no fires. But um, I don't have a solution. That's the problem. Like, I have not traveled in my longer trips to like Europe or like I'm itching to go back to Asia, but the time difference is so challenging from a work perspective. That's
Yeah.
why I've been doing a lot of which is probably why you've done it. Central America, like I want to go to South America. I'm looking at Argentina because I would go to Europe and I would love to go to Asia, but I don't want to take calls at 2 in the morning. I've done that. It is not fun. So I don't have an answer for you. I think the challenge is like when the business becomes legit and it's not just you and like it's not a software that you built yourself out of your basement. It's real people with real meetings and stuff. You know, you just have to deal with it. And that's not a great answer, but I think it's like that's the only thing you can do.
It's the harsh truth, and it's very respectable, that answer.
Yeah.
We'll end on this question. I know we kind of went over, but best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh man.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
Sorry.
I, I'm gonna give the best. I'm gonna give my own best piece of advice because I've learned a lot. You asked about the other earlier question, which kind of resonated with me. Not about travel, but I became a dad a year and a half ago, and I think at the end of it all, you don't get buried with your money. And I think that's really important. I get. I sometimes I get these philosophical conversations on these podcasts, but
I
it's
love
so
it.
true because like I worked really hard. Again, I started my first business back in college, actually, like in college. Now it's more common, but it wasn't back, whatever it was, 15 years ago, whatever.
Sure, for sure.
I built that. I worked hard. I went to 5 networking events every night, but I was young. It didn't matter. But the older I got, like I don't go to as many. I do go to some networking events that make it worth my while. I don't take. I'll give you the advice because it kind of came separately, but I think you'll appreciate this. Chef's table, Andrew Melman, the guy from Argentina, kind of an odd guy, but he had this guy come out and he's like, "Oh, Andrew, we're going to be in the same, country. Why don't we grab dinner?" And he's like, "No, I don't really want to." And he's like, "Whoa, like why don't you want to grab dinner with me?" And he's like, "Well, listen, we know each other. We're not family. We're not very close friends. I don't know what he was, 65, 70, 75." He's like, "I'm not that young. My time is really important to spend with family and people that I really care about." He's like, "We've drifted apart." And like that, obviously that's like a overextension, but and he said it much better than me. But I just think to myself, I can't take every meeting like I used to. I can't take every opportunity. Like I only get a small window right now in the mornings, and then 5 to 7 before my kid goes to bed. I get the weekends, and especially now that she's a toddler, I've become so much more invested in her than anything else as a dad, which is funny. It's so cliche, but it's so true that for me it's like I moved a meeting that I have in a couple of weeks to a Saturday at noon because I know that's when she's asleep because it's an in-person meeting because I didn't want to give up a Friday at 5 p.m. or sorry, like a weekday at 5 p.m. And that's not because I don't like the person. I have no interest neither here nor there, and it could be a prospective client, but I was like, I just care about my kid, and you do it for your kid. And so my advice, if kid or not, doesn't matter, is like working hard for the sake of working hard is pointless. Working hard to try to get a future for yourself, to not have to work so hard is good. But working hard for someone else has been very eye opening for me. And now when I think about my own success or what can be success, it's to make sure that I can spend, like, for me, success is doing well financially in a reasonable amount of time so I could spend my time with the people I care about. Like, that is more important than anything nowadays. And if you asked me that 2 3 years ago, it would, yeah, it would resonate. I've got family and all that, like, but it wouldn't as when you become a dad. So I don't know, it's changed.
Yeah, you said what you said is cliche. Oh, I want to spend time with my daughter, dude. You're from Chicago, I'm from California. That shit is not cliche to say, and you're a great dad. Okay, you're a great dad.
Appreciate that.
A lot
I'll
of
save
kids
that.
out
I'll save that for her for like 10 years from
there,
now.
for sure, a lot of kids out there wish they were like their dad was invested like that. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Anyways, where can they find you if they wanted to talk about anything marketing related?
I've got a pretty unique name, so you can search my name here. Here, let me get it right there. On you could search that on LinkedIn, Dan Salganik, or if you just put a dan.salganik at visualfizz.com, you can get my email. You can email hello@visualfizz.com. Shoot me a note. Let me know what you need, how I could help, if you're interested in working with us. But Jordan, I so appreciate the time that we had to chat. It was a great time. I feel like we could have grabbed a beer and done it over, IRL.
I agree. I agree. Audience, thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys soon.